If the earth has a soul, then the Middle East is where it breathes. The Middle East. A crucible of civilization, cradle of religion, and crossroads of empire. From the sun-scorched sands of Arabia to the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, this land has witnessed humanity's greatest triumphs, and darkest tragedies. This isn't just the story of one place. It's the story of many: Sumerians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Ottomans, Zionists. The names change, the battles blur, but the land remains. Sacred to billions, rich in oil, cursed by conflict, its past is tangled in myth, soaked in blood, and echoing into our modern headlines. We'll journey across 12,000 years of history. Through temples and trenches, prophets and kings. We'll explore how a strip of earth smaller than India birthed 3 world religions, endured countless invasions, and became the geopolitical epicenter of the 21st century. But what came before the wars? Before Islam and Israel? Before oil pipelines and colonial borders? To understand today's Middle East, we must go back, not decades, but millennia. The story begins, not with armies, but with rivers. In the beginning, there were 2 rivers, and from them, the world changed. Long before Babylon or Baghdad, before the pyramids or the Torah, there was Sumer. Around 10,000 BCE, human beings began to domesticate plants and animals in the Fertile Crescent, an arc of arable land stretching from the Nile Valley through the Levant and into Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. It was here, between the Tigris and Euphrates, that humanity founded its first cities. Uruk. Ur. Eridu. The Sumerians, inventors of writing, codified law, and monumental architecture, built ziggurats in honor of their gods. They etched their thoughts into clay tablets with cuneiform, the world's earliest known script. Time was no longer just cyclical seasons, it was recorded. Trade routes flourished. Bronze tools replaced stone. Complex irrigation gave rise to surplus, and with it, the birth of government, kingship, and organized religion. But the Sumerians were not alone. They were followed, and often conquered, by Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians. Each left their mark, each fought for dominance over the rivers. It was the dawn of civilization, and already, the seeds of conflict were sown. While others conquered with fire, Persia ruled with respect. By the 6th century BCE, a new force emerged from the Iranian plateau, the Persians. Under Cyrus the Great, the Achaemenid Empire became the largest the world had ever seen. But Cyrus wasn't merely a conqueror, he was a visionary. When he took Babylon, he freed the Jews from captivity. The Cyrus Cylinder, often called the first charter of human rights, proclaimed religious tolerance, local autonomy, and legal equity. Darius I expanded the empire further, building the Royal Road, a precursor to highways, and instituting a system of satraps, or regional governors. Zoroastrianism, with its cosmic dualism of good and evil, became the empire's spiritual backbone. Persia's genius lay not in erasing cultures, but in binding them. From Egypt to Bactria, people lived under one banner yet kept their languages, gods, and customs. But history had other plans. In 330 BCE, a 20-year-old Macedonian king would ride out to destroy Persia. His name, Alexander. And with his arrival, the ancient world would never be the same again. They came not just with swords, but with stars, scripts, and solutions. In the 7th century CE, a voice emerged from the Arabian desert. The Prophet Muhammad, preaching monotheism and social justice, unified the tribes of Arabia under Islam, a faith that would transform the Middle East and far beyond. Within a century of Muhammad's death, Muslim armies stretched from Spain to the Indus. But conquest gave way to culture. Under the Abbasid Caliphate, with Baghdad as its glittering capital, the Islamic Golden Age bloomed. Algebra, optics, medicine, astronomy, disciplines nurtured by scholars like Al-Khwarizmi and Ibn Sina. Greek texts were translated into Arabic, preserved through the fall of Rome, and reintroduced to Europe centuries later. Córdoba in Spain dazzled with libraries. Cairo bustled with trade. Mosques and madrasas became centers of enlightenment. But this golden age wasn't just Arab, it was Persian, Turkic, Berber, Jewish, and more. A mosaic of cultures under the banner of Islam, not just a religion, but a civilization. Yet beneath the surface, rivalries brewed. The battle lines weren't always between empires, but within faith itself. Every faith faces its fracture. For Islam, it came early, and violently. After the Prophet's death, a dispute over succession led to the split between Sunni and Shia Muslims. Shias believed leadership should stay within the Prophet's family, specifically with Ali and his descendants. Sunnis held that any pious Muslim could lead. This theological schism became political, cultural, and at times, deeply bloody. The martyrdom of Hussein at Karbala in 680 CE became a rallying cry for Shia identity, and a wound that never healed. Meanwhile, Turkic nomads, the Seljuks, embraced Islam and stormed into the Middle East, seizing Baghdad and asserting Sunni orthodoxy. They clashed with Shia powers like the Fatimids in Egypt, while Christian crusaders loomed from the west. Unity splintered. Caliphates fractured into emirates. Competing dynasties rose and fell in quick succession. It was the calm before the storm, and that storm was the Mongols. Civilizations can rise in centuries, and fall in flames in a single day. In the 13th century, calamity arrived on horseback. The Mongols, under Hulagu Khan, laid siege to Baghdad, the heart of Islamic learning and power. In 1258, they breached its walls and unleashed unspeakable destruction. The Tigris ran black with ink from torched books and red with scholars' blood. A century earlier, the Crusaders had already carved Christian kingdoms out of Muslim lands, culminating in the brutal sack of Jerusalem in 1099. Yet, amid the chaos, heroes rose. Salah al-Din, Saladin, recaptured Jerusalem with honor, allowing Christian worshippers to leave peacefully. He became a symbol of chivalry and unity. Still, the region lay fragmented. Seljuks, Crusaders, Mamluks, Mongols, all vying for dominance in a land scorched by war. But history would pivot again. From Anatolia, a new power was quietly rising. The Ottomans had arrived, and they would rule for 600 years. For 6 centuries, one empire ruled the crossroads of continents, until it collapsed in a breath. The Ottomans began as warriors on horseback. But by the 16th century, they had become sultans of an empire stretching from Hungary to Yemen. Suleiman the Magnificent brought legal reform, architectural brilliance, and imperial glory. Istanbul, once Constantinople, became the cultural jewel of the Islamic world. The Ottomans controlled the holy cities, Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, and ruled Arabs, Kurds, Armenians, Greeks, and more. Their millet system allowed religious autonomy. For many, it was an era of uneasy peace. But by the 19th century, the empire was the sick man of Europe. Western powers nibbled at its borders. Revolts flared. Nationalism stirred. World War I sealed its fate. The Ottomans sided with Germany. In 1916, Britain and France secretly drew the Sykes-Picot Agreement, carving the Middle East into spheres of influence. The war ended. The empire fell. And in its place, new nations rose, but not on their own terms. Borders were drawn with pens, but paid for in blood. The end of Ottoman rule didn't mean freedom, it meant foreign rule with new names. France seized Syria and Lebanon. Britain took Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine. These mandates weren't gifts of independence, they were colonies under a legal disguise. Arab leaders, who had fought alongside the Allies with promises of liberation, were betrayed. Lawrence of Arabia became a legend. But his dream of a free Arab federation crumbled under colonial boots. In Palestine, tensions mounted as Britain encouraged Jewish immigration while promising Arab autonomy, a contradiction that would ignite decades of conflict. By mid-20th century, the region boiled. Egypt threw off British control. Syria expelled the French. Iraq overthrew its monarchy. Israel declared independence in 1948, sparking its first war with the Arab world. But the borders drawn in European parlors would haunt the Middle East for generations. Black gold made kings of some, and ruins of others. The 20th century gave the Middle East new gods, oil, nationalism, and ideology. In Saudi Arabia, oil transformed desert kingdoms into economic powerhouses. Monarchs allied with the West. Skyscrapers pierced the sky. But beneath the wealth, unrest simmered. In 1979, Iran erupted. The Shah fell. Ayatollah Khomeini ushered in an Islamic revolution, anti-Western, theocratic, and militant. A new fault line opened, Sunni Arab states versus Shia Iran. Elsewhere, Iraq fought a brutal war with Iran. Then invaded Kuwait. Then faced U.S. bombs. Lebanon collapsed into sectarian civil war. Syria descended into dictatorship and bloodshed. The Arab Spring in 2011 sparked hope. But in many places, it unleashed chaos. Libya, Syria, Yemen, all torn apart. Israel and Palestine remained locked in a cycle of violence, diplomacy, and despair. And through it all, foreign powers came and went, but the fires burned on. This land has seen prophets and tyrants, poets and warriors, but its story is still being written. The Middle East is not a relic. It is a beating heart, bruised, but unbroken. It's easy to reduce it to headlines, war, oil, religion. But it is also the place where writing was born. Where the stars were first mapped. Where faiths took shape. Where human dreams, and nightmares, played out on a grand stage. Its future remains uncertain. Climate change, political reform, tech revolutions, all will test it anew. Yet its legacy is undeniable. The Middle East is not just a place. It's an idea. A mirror. A warning. A lesson. And as long as humanity seeks meaning, power, and belonging, the Middle East will remain at the center of our story.